Hello, everyone. This is the Public Safety, Human Service, Recreation and Human Service Committee conversation that we're having, formerly known as the Public Safety, Youth and Recreation Committee. We're having a conversation with, let me see, I have the mayor, the president, Loretta Scott, our chief of staff, BJ Scanlon, with us. We have our executive deputy chief on the call. I'm just trying to look around. And all of our committee members are with us. Council member Jose Pio is with us as well. Do we have Mitch Gruber on the line as well? How about BJ? Because I'm on my phone. Would you just go around the room and just let us know, introduce everybody, please? Because I can't see everybody on my screen.
Certainly. We have Deputy Clerk Kanda Barron, myself, Chief of Staff to the City Council, ECD Andre Anderson, Kate May, who is the data analytics person for the city, Justin Roy, the city's communications director, Councilmember Pio, Council President Scott, Mayor Warren, Lieutenant Shaw. I'm not certain of your new title, I apologize.
The Deputy Chief of Administration.
Oh, Deputy Chief Shaw, my apologies. Yourself, Vice President Lightfoot, Josanne Reeves, the council's liaison to the mayor's office, Councilmember Miguel Melendez, Councilmember Michael Patterson, and Councilmember Mitch Gruber.
Well, welcome everybody. I'm going to turn it over to the mayor and her staff to go over some information that she wants to share with our committee and to others. And at this time, Madam Mayor, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Vice President Lightfoot. Thank you, Madam President, for allowing us to just give you some data. As you all know, we have had some challenges within our police department. Our police chief, Cynthia Harriet, is actually doing an interview right now, so she is unavailable, but our executive deputy chief, as well as deputy chief of administration, Tom Shaw, is here. We wanted to, like I said, we're having some challenges, and we believe that we have some great opportunities when it comes down to our police department. We wanted to get some information from our public as a whole, to see where they were with a number of different issues. And so we wanted to give a report on the survey that we did. Over 2,000 city residents responded to the survey, which is a tremendous response rate, given the population that participated. This shows that the community is very interested in this issue and their confidence that the city wants to hear exactly what they have to say. I will also note that additional 1,200 non-city residents responded to the survey. The results from our residents overwhelmingly support ensuring that the city be provided the resources to meaningfully respond to the governor's executive order. 56% of our residents believe independent experts should assist the city in this effort. About 52% of our residents believe that help from outside of city government is required to complete our efforts. And 57% support Chief Harriet Sullivan's being provided the resources she needs to improve our police community relations. I will turn it over to Kate May, who's our data analytics person, to show you the survey, the results, and to go through some of the data. And I also want to note that there were over 2,200 comments that were received. We will be releasing all of this information on the city's website. Many of them were lengthy and thoughtful discussions on how to improve policing that we definitely will utilize as we respond to the governor's executive order. And we want to make sure that that is captured and gone through for us to be able to do that. And so I'm going to turn it over to Kate May, who will go through the survey results. If you have any questions about after the survey results are shared, we would gladly answer those questions. Kate?
Sure, thank you, Mayor. I'm going to share. Can the host please enable screen sharing?
You should be good.
Great, thanks. All right, so there were 6 questions that communications authored as part of this survey, and we put them online through a survey that people did not have to sign in. Anyone could submit this survey from any location. So you'll see, I'll go through each survey question on each of the pages. I'll show you a breakdown of the basic demographic information that people self-reported about themselves, where they primarily their residents. And then you can see a preview of the comments. You cannot see all of the comments on this screen because there are many of them. So let's get started with question 1. There was a statement about the Crisis Intervention Services Program that laid out some background information, followed by a question: do you support having crisis intervention services respond rather than police to mental health and addiction-related 911 calls? So the way that this presentation will work is the pie chart shows the overall response breakdown numbers, this table up here. And this analysis was originally part of an interactive dashboard, which is why you see these 4 blue boxes over here that would have enabled you to filter this bottom table that breaks out the responses by whether the person self-reported as being a Rochester resident, a county resident but not a city resident, resident of an area outside of the county, or they did not indicate where they reside. So you can see, you can compare in the bottom table each of those segments, how they responded: favorably, not favorably, unsure, or did not provide a response. You'll notice that in each of these pages that we'll go through, the last category of not indicated, people who did not indicate a location, often it looks like from the survey responses that there were people who responded no response to each of the specific questions, and then they provided a comment. So that's why you might see a high level of that sort of response rate. So overall, you can see to this question, overall, not looking at where one resides, overall the response rate was of yes to this question was about 56%, no 33%, 10% weren't sure, and then 1% did not respond. Response of in the affirmative was higher for Rochester residents than it was for other categories. Second question was specifically asking about whether the new policies should be developed in conjunction with independent experts. Again, the pie chart shows the overall response in yes, no, unsure, or no response, with 56% answering to the affirmative. Breaking it down by where folks were located, it's very little difference between Rochester residents and Monroe County non-city residents, a little bit less of agreement for those who reside outside of Monroe County. Question 3 is looking at whether in general folks support community policing. Overwhelmingly, the response rate was high. It was even higher. 82% for Monroe County non-city residents, and similarly high for pretty much all categories, not so much for the not indicated. There's a little bit more of a non-response to that question. Question 4 asked about having specific municipal buildings in neighborhoods dedicated to policing efforts and other initiatives. Overall, the highest category of response was no, 47%. Yes was 33%, unsure 18%, and no response was 2%. There was a higher rate of a no response in the Monroe County non-city resident and residing outside of the county area relative to city residents on this question. Question 5 talked about providing the chief of police with resources around community policing. And overall, the response rate, or the response was 57% in the affirmative, 21% no, 20% unsure, and 2% no response. And there was a little bit of difference depending on where one self-reported the residency, with slightly higher responses in the affirmative for those who did not reside in the city. And the final question, do you believe that we can do sorry, it was about DOJ review of RPD, including things such as body-worn camera footage. Is this something that we can do internally? 50% overall said no, 37% said yes, 11% unsure, 2% no response. And you can see there was a bit of a differential based on self-reported residents here, with a higher no rate for those located closer to the to this jurisdiction, and differing responses for those located outside. Oops. So we have all of the comments that are available for review. We also show how the individual submitting that comment answered each of these questions. It's easier to view this stuff on the interactive dashboard because you can filter a little bit more easily. But again, we have not edited the comments, so some of them may not be appropriate for certain audiences. And then overall, the demographics break out thusly, with 63% of those responding self-affirming that they do live in the city, and people self-supplied their zip codes. When you do get your hands on the full data set, you'll notice some of the zip codes aren't real zip codes. So there are some answers that are either errors or just sort of nonsense, but the vast majority are real zip codes that do correspond to the city that they self-report. So that's a high-level overview of the survey that was published. Again, the responses were all submitted between October 19th and October 29th through that public form that did not require a sign-in. So all of the information is self-reported. We cannot verify location information.
Thank you. Thank you, Kate. And I will open it up to anyone that has any questions. We wanted to provide the information to you, answer any questions that you may have. And again, the dashboard and other information will be shared with you directly. So you can go through and deep dive and look at the comments, and will be shared with the public as well.
I don't have a question, Madam Mayor, but I do have a quick comment before the rest of my colleagues jump in. I just want to commend the administration for putting forth a survey such as this. And I say that because with COVID, of course, it's made things very challenging on how we can interact with our public. We haven't been in the city council building since March for a council meeting, speak to council. But with that, we've gone via YouTube and Facebook with all of our meetings. And I believe the New York State Open Meetings Commission gave us an A rating because we could have relaxed our community engagement with the governor's recommendations for COVID, but we did not do that. We actually exceeded, thanks to our amazing staff that we have, first of all, we exceeded the expectations of open meetings. And so when people talk about transparency, this council has been more transparent than any other councils ever, because we had our first council meeting on Zoom, or actually I think at the time it was Teams, but so we have done that, and you guys are utilizing technology in such a way where we're enabling to be able to interact with our community in such a way to be transparent, as well as this meeting being broadcasted live on YouTube. So I hope going forward that we can still, because we don't know how long this COVID is going to last, and looks like it may be around with us for quite some time. But I look forward to us engaging our community, continuing to engage our community in outside of the box ways that we can interact with them and still keep people safe. So this is one of those opportunities to do that. And I just commend the fact that we're continually to engage our community as much and being transparent. For you to release the comments, I think is also great, because the comments, some of them aren't all that great to read, to be quite honest with you, but that just shows the transparency of the fact that, releasing not only the results of the survey, but also the comments that the community has made as well too, I think is important. So I just wanted to make that statement to the community that it's very difficult for us to interact and have public input from the community under these situations that we have with the COVID-19.
I agree with my esteemed colleague regarding the outstanding work that's been done to ensure our accessibility and transparency, and the amazing efforts that staff have conducted to make sure that we are transparent, and that our council meetings and all of that are visible and accessible to the public. I am disappointed, though, regarding the survey. I don't believe it was constructed in a way that reflects our genuine desire to have candid answers. Although they are captured in the comments, I don't believe that the survey was constructed in such a way as to build upon that. So other than the fact that I think the survey should have been built a different way, I appreciate the effort undertaken by the administration.
Can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to know, with the comments, will there be any kind of qualitative analysis? Because I would imagine that some of the comments might line up with some of the questions, and maybe in a different way. So will there be any effort to kind of like figure out qualitatively what the comments say? Do you know what I mean?
So all the comments are available, and it sort of in the way that if you look at the last page, how the comments are outlined, this the comments, and then it goes into what that person actually, if that person answered any of the questions, or if that person said yes or no.
Right.
So if that person said, yes or no on those questions that were asked.
So what I'm trying to get at is having someone go through all the questions and kind of take out of there, like you can get like maybe a list of 5 categories or something and get where people are in sort of like the same format as the questions, be able to say, well, 56% of the people who submitted comments feel this way about XYZ. So like having a qualitative analysis to be able to pick out in kind of a more visible format without everybody reading all of the comments, what was it, 300 something, to be able to kind of
20,
put it in categories. Yeah.
It was 2,200 comments.
Oh, wow.
As we go through and look at, our response to the Executive Order 203, the comments are going to be very helpful to us to be able to, as part of our community engagement and our community feedback. And so definitely those comments and thoughts on, the questions definitely will be a part of that.
Yeah, I think they would provide context, because I feel like without that, the actual percentages lose some meaning when you're not getting at, the people who didn't answer, where they stood, because the questions maybe didn't allow the full picture of what they were trying to say. But thanks for the answer.
You're welcome.
Kate, can I ask you a question just in terms of, or maybe it's not, maybe it's everyone, but is the number of responses that we got in line with what we'd usually get out of a citywide survey?
So given the short amount of time where the survey was open, this response rate is actually relatively high. It's not a representative sample of the city by any means, but it is a decently large sample, and it is, it's smaller than the samples that we did regarding the Jumpstarting Rock business survey, but that was to a more, I guess, concentrated interest group and was open for a longer period of time. So I guess that's the best context that I can provide.
I will say, I mean, I echo President Scott and Vice President Lightfoot. The use of technology and the quick turnaround to get 3,000 voices captured is really nice. I think that I'd also add to President Scott's point about the wording of the questions, and I think it's difficult to ascertain what information we truly glean from those. But I guess I'd ask, maybe it's not fair to ask the question without Chief Harriet here, but I'd ask Mayor and Executive Deputy Chief Anderson. I mean, what do you think? I mean, what does this survey do for your actions moving forward? Or is that not where you want to go at this particular point, Mayor?
So I think for me, it's, where the community lies in wanting to move forward. And so, and to move forward in a way that is productive. I think that people want to, a lot of times you can ask a survey and you can ask it in such a way that you're given a lot of flowery words to sort of point someone in a particular direction. If there's a problem and you're asking a question directly without any context, I believe that Rochester residents and, residents that actually took the survey are very smart. They're very in tune. They know what's going on in our community. And I believe that the comments that they put together reflect that they are very in tune with what's happening in the community. So it's not like you're given a survey that people have no context in, and asking a flat question and understanding that you want to hear directly back from them, yes or no, and allowing them to be able to make comments, I think is nothing wrong with that. In the future, we can consider and as we start to use technology in a different way, this is the first time we've done this way. We can look at other other means and other development of the questions. But for the administration, it's really giving council the information, giving you all the information, and outlining what the community that took this survey actually felt.
So, and Vice President Lightfoot, if I'm taking this conversation, the problem with Zoom is I can't tell people's body language to tell me if I shouldn't be going in a certain direction or not. So feel free to just, give me some like finger guns or something like that. But Mayor, when, I obviously, one of the questions is particularly about neighborhood buildings. And I think that we all know that, in the last 3 months, we saw the East Main Street project get approved, get repealed. And I'm sure that's one of the reasons why that question was asked. And I can say, unquestionably, I still get people regularly asking questions about that. I get neighborhood residents asking what is happening with that project. There's a lot of answers that we need to provide to the community. So I'm all for starting that dialogue. I guess my question to the administration, and again to you, Mayor, but also to Chief Harriet, is what does this survey, what do you expect to do based on the results that you got from this survey? Are there action steps to be taken?
Absolutely. So the chief is going to do what she needs to do to move forward to comply with the executive order. It's to provide information to all of us, right? We want to hear from our constituents. We want to hear what they have to say, whether they agree or disagree with us, right? Just because you might have the loudest voice doesn't mean that you speak for everyone. And so I think that that's the what we have to be cognizant of. And you're 100% right. I get a lot of residents that, whether we're talking about the property on Lake Avenue or we're talking about the property on East Main Street. Right now, it's an empty lot, and people want to know what's going to happen here. We haven't discussed that as administration or council. It's a discussion that I think that we need to have. Currently, it is city-owned property, right? So the suggestion: do you want to go out for RFP? Do you want to make a housing? All those things. The community wants to have those questions answered, and so I think that. Right now, it's just a matter of having the information, seeing what people are, how people feel on certain things, and then, we can figure out how to move forward from here. But I think that without asking the question, you never really know the direction in which you should go in. And I think that it's only a starting point. It's a starting point. And there's a lot more work that needs to be done, a lot more questions that have to be asked and answered here. One of the things that we have been doing, and I want to thank Vice President Lightfoot and Councilmember Melendez, we started the internal group of meeting with UCLM, the PAB, as well as the Race Commission, along with the EDC, the chief, and looking at Executive Order 203. We've broken that down into 13 different sections that each of us are working on. We still, we will be sending, hopefully by tomorrow, a letter to council from that working group about what our needs are, or what we believe our needs are, and hopefully able to move forward as it pertains to the work that needs to be done and the time frame that we need to do it. So this is just a start, and we don't want to have surveys and information and not release it to council, not release it to the public, actually put information out there. And then, as was indicated, this is a way for us to gauge and get information directly from the public, people that's answering the questions, which I know is very important to each and every one of us.
And when it comes to the East Main Street and the Lake Avenue properties, are those things that the administration is? I mean, there's a ton of options, right? I mean, especially with all of the work, obviously, that the administration and Vice President Lightfoot has worked on in regards to the whole Department of Recreation and Human Services, and all the different crisis intervention components we have going on. There's a lot of kind of interesting possibilities around some of the properties that the city has acquired recently too. What would the process be for starting to think through some of those options? Is it to wait until after the work that's going to be done with the executive order, after that work is done, to start having those conversations?
I don't think so. I think at any point in time we can start having discussions on, neighborhood and business development. I know Vice President Lightfoot has been having many discussions with the Race Commission and business development in that. And so I don't think that it is predicated that those two properties are dependent on our executive order, our response to Executive Order 203. It has nothing to do with that. The two properties, the council, you're the, you have to decide because, you're in charge of the lease, the sale, the purchase of land. And so that's a discussion that will have to happen with council. At any point in time, you want to do a working group to really look at what are the possibilities there, and I think that's another survey, right? What are the possibilities that, could happen? But that doesn't stop or have to wait until until we do the executive order work. The Executive Order 203 work is very, very specific. They have 13 sort of sections that guide the work. And, so we'll be working on that, but that really has nothing to do with what we decide to do as a city or with the properties on Lake Avenue or on East Main Street. One of the things on Lake Avenue, commitments that we made with the DEC has to be complied with, and that's the cleanup. And the cleanup of the property, I think it's going to be about $3 million. And I think that part of that cleanup requires that part of that property be made a parking lot because of some of the materials that's there. And so we can get into the specifics. I can have a briefing with DES as well as neighborhood and business development whenever council is ready to have that briefing, because decisions will have to be made as it pertains to financing some of those requirements that we agree to when acquiring those properties.
Hold on a second. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilman Gruber, I'm gonna ask you to put a pin in it for a second. If you have additional questions, I can come back to you later. I want to open it up for another all of our council members, of course, but definitely one of our committee members, Councilmember Jose Pio, and then to the rest of the group that maybe have not had an opportunity to speak yet. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much. I take quantitative analysis very seriously. It's a foundation to providing appropriate intel to our leaders. You need the proper intel to structure the strategy and game plan, and I just don't believe the intel here was appropriate. We solicited a lot of information, a lot of answers from people who were outside the area who could have lied about living in our area. I just don't think we should be acting upon this at all. I think we really need to take a look at doing something different. And I applaud the effort on this one, but it's not correct. It was not right.
So I don't understand your response. If you're widely trying to get information or from the public, you release it via the media, Facebook, all of your formal channels. I don't understand soliciting input from the entire public and asking them to self-report and let us know where they're from. I mean, we tout, people do press conferences and do other things, and they make assertions and other things, and we never question whether they live in a city, whether they have the, do they live in a city? Do they, if their opinions are valid or invalid? I think that that's not fair, that the public is very astute, and to have 2,200 comments, and to look at that, to look at the data, people that have taken the survey, the way that it was released. I just think that that's a wrong analysis. And I think that is disheartening to the people that took the time to actually take the survey and to really share their opinions. You may not like the results, but to have that many people widely, respond in a short period of time to a survey, I think that it's disheartening for the public to see that it needs to be disregarded.
If we take a look at the numbers that were just shown, it was 1/3 of the respondents were not even living in their city limits.
Hear you. I can't hear you.
Turn your mic up a little bit, Councilmember Pio.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
So when we take a look at the numbers, 1/3 of the respondents were not even city members, city residents. And for them to have input on how my family is policed or how our RPD needs to be acting in my neighborhood, to me, that's a slap in my face, because there's a lot of people out there that have a lot of input that do not, I may not agree with, but they don't have the same amount of weight as those who live in our city, who have invested in our homes, in our communities. Those are the people who really matter, in my opinion. So if 1/3 of the numbers are faulty, I'm sorry, but I've put together surveys before. This was just not, it was not great. I applaud the effort though, but we should have sent something out in the mail. Yes, it would have been costly, but that way we would have known they were city residents, and the intel that we would have gotten from that could have constructed a better strategy.
So I think that there's no way for us to exclude people outside the city. I mean, I think that it's absolutely disheartening to actually hear you say that people that live in our county don't get a right to even talk or have anything to say about our city. And that's the reason why we specifically asked, do you live in the city of Rochester? Do you live in the county of Monroe? Number one. And we have a lot of people. I mean, if you ask protesters that are out here that have protested, many of them don't necessarily live in the city, but their voices on a particular issue should be heard. And it has been heard. And so if we're going to put a wall up and say, and if you look specifically at the numbers of city residents that did respond and that did ask for their information to be included here, I think that they were very clear about what they particularly felt as it pertains to the survey. Paper surveys would have been, very, very expensive. We're in the middle of a pandemic. We're in the middle of a financial crisis, with our budget. And so to get a sense of, the paper surveys, and they have a very low response rate, return rate. So I just think that to discredit, people that took the survey and to act like their voices or their thoughts and, their comments should not be considered. I just think that is, I just really hope that we are as a city more responsive and have a ability to be more open-minded and thoughtful, because when people stand at a press conference, you don't know if those people live in the city or not, but they're actually giving you their opinion on what should happen within the city. We're not going around and asking people to write down their zip code and their address. That's not what we're doing. In this particular case, you had a response rate that really city residents did take. They enthusiastically took. They made comments and they shared those comments with us. I think that those people that did that are very astute and wanting to get more information, wide information from the general public should not be frowned upon. It actually should be celebrated.
Councilmember Pio, do you have any additional outside of there may be agreed to disagree there as far as opinions on that particular survey. Is there any other new piece about that you want to bring to this space before we open it up to other members of the council?
No, I really appreciate the effort and the outpouring of people who did participate in it. But it's hard to tell who actually were city residents, who weren't.
All right, thank you. Other members?
Yes, I have a few statements and questions. So, I think one of the challenges from my perspective was the amount of time that the survey was out there. I know we needed some quick responses. There's action items that we wanted to move forward with or get input on. So I think in the future, if there's an opportunity to do something like this again, if we could have a longer window period of time to keep it open, that would be helpful. Another thing that
let me ask a question on that, just so that we know what would be an appropriate time frame that you believe would be an appropriate time frame to leave a survey open.
Sure. So I think 2 weeks might be a little too short, but 4 weeks might be a little too long. So something in the middle there would be ideal. If we can just, I think that extra week does make a difference in terms of promotion and engagement with community members. And in the same vein, I think that I know this was publicized and put out there on the city's website, and it made it into many circles that I was part of. But thinking more about how else can we ensure that there's wider access and awareness of the survey in the future would be helpful.
Okay.
And I do want to jump back to something Mary mentioned earlier. Having done many community-wide surveys, I think that the idea of going back to some of the comments, and it may not be something we do right now, but because we have access to this data and doing a real analysis around some of the themes would be important and useful. Particularly when we think about the group that's come together to respond to the executive order. I feel this could be beneficial information if it was analyzed for the Race Commission, for PAB, for RPD, and all. So if there's an opportunity to really dive into those comments, because I think while it's great that we have the 2,200 plus comments, if you don't analyze them in a way that brings it to a thematic voice from the community, I think we end up with just 200 or 2,200 comments. Right. So if we can spend some energy on that, I think that'll be very important. And then lastly, and I guess this is the question that I would have, in terms of the data analysis, I would like to see the charge strictly by city residents to kind of get at what Councilmember Peo is saying. It would be good to see the analysis done in a way that we can. I know that's done in the actual the charts, or the data points below. But if we can get just the graphs, so we can look at what the city is saying versus what.
I think that Kate can do that.
Okay.
Yeah, the interactive version that we can post once the migration is over will allow you to click on, if you click on the word Rochester resident, it will change the graph.
Mm-hmm. So
okay.
you can actually click on Rochester resident, and it will show you the data doesn't change. Actually, in many cases it gets better when it goes just to Rochester resident. And so I definitely agree with you on and Mary, Councilmember Lupien, on the comments and looking at it for themes through the work that we're going to be doing on the Executive Order 203. And so, that's part of, that's not going to be lost. And so we'll definitely do that.
Okay, that's it for me. Thank you.
Other council members?
Councilmember Lupien says she had a follow-up question.
Oh, yes, Councilmember Lupien.
I want to make sure everybody else, before I jump in again, if anybody else had a comment.
People who haven't spoke, Patterson,
I just
Evans.
had a quick comment, Mr. Chairman. Not sure if and this is just food for thought. Not sure if the police department and administration have thought about maybe doing focus groups. I know we can't meet in public, but I've found I've done a lot of surveys on various topics over the time, over a long period of time. And sometimes I think to supplement the survey to get focus groups with a broad cross section of people might be useful for the police department as well for all of us. And if people are, and being that we have Zoom now, if people are okay with being recorded, then you can go back and see what various folks had to say, because sometimes hearing from people really brings to life what their comments may have been in the written form or what they said on the survey. But it would just have to be carefully picked and make sure that you have a good representation. You wouldn't want to have all of the same people saying the same, saying the same thing, but a broad cross section of people from throughout the city and various city neighborhoods, I think could be good. And I don't think that needs to be done ASAP, but just something to think about for the future.
I agree, Councilmember Evans. One second, Councilmember Evans, I agree. But oftentimes, I just want to put this out just as a point. Oftentimes when we start creating groups, then we get the not that we shouldn't do it. I think we should do those type of things, and I think they're important. But they also bring other problematic issues of, oh, well, why did you pick these people and not me, and that kind of stuff. So just want to put that in the airways as well too. That also creates another situation.
Yeah. But when I talk about a focus group is very scientific. It's not like so. I mean, a focus group is not a community forum. It's not a assembly when everyone comes to speak. A focus group is very tailored towards trying to get at what you're trying to get from a survey. So it's just like sending out a survey, but only more tailored. So it's
right.
Yeah. So it's not a community forum type thing. I think those things are important too. But a focus group is more so geared towards you trying to get information from people. It could be with senior citizens. It could be with, you pick your group, and you can have various ones over a period of time. So yeah, but I get what you're saying. It's not meant to be like a large scale community forum type thing. It's more of a scientific endeavor that would supplement a survey.
Thank you. I'm sure that our data analytic person, Kate May, is taking that. We've done focus groups before on a number of different issues, and it's something that we definitely can do. I believe that the more community engagement, the more we're able to hear from the public, the general public, on different issues and their thoughts on it. It's very, very important. So it's something that we'll definitely consider going forward. And I know that the internal working group, as it pertains to Executive Order 203, are looking for ways to engage the public. And so it's possible that we could do focus groups around that.
Vice President, can I just add one thing to that? It's not a question, just to piggyback to it.
Well, if we're going to stick in format that we're in.
It's just a comment, and then I'm done.
Go ahead.
Comment, I'm stepping out.
Okay. Well, okay, go ahead.
I also just want to say that the administration provided us with a tremendous amount of data that was done, I think it was back in 2015, in conjunction with RIT on the subjects related to section offices and things like that. I would hate to, any data we're doing right now, anything we're addressing, we need to make sure we're building off of pretty fresh data. 5 years ago is not a lifetime ago. And let's not render that data useless. Let's try to find a way to meld the two and try to understand how to build off of that.
Good point.
I agree. I think that it's, where do we want to go from here, right? Standing still and doing nothing is not an option. We have to figure out pathways that we can move forward and what that looks like. And, I think that the administration is prepared to walk hand in hand and side by side with council on the direction that you want to go in, whether you're talking about what to do with the land, or you're talking about how we're going to truly engage in community policing, or what we're going to do around mental health. So our goal is really to see where where the community is on certain things, and how do we as a administration, as a city, want to start to make the baby steps on moving forward and what that looks like. And, I think that the good, engagement point that we have, and I think that it's been, very informative, meetings and talking with, the PAB, UCLM, as well as race, and the community people and the people within the city that's around that table, really ready to, delve in and get to work on this executive order and looking at policies and procedures and use of force and other things that many of those different community groups are looking at and going to be providing us information. And they're excited about being able to give that information to City Council to vote on. So for us, it's really about making sure that we have the information, that we take the baby steps necessary to move forward, but not stand still.
Councilmember Patterson?
Yeah. So you've mentioned the governor's executive order a couple of times. Just for the folks who are listening on the outside and might not know what you're talking about, can you put that in context what the governor's executive order is that you keep referencing? Can you also put in context how the survey fits into that work, and also how the working group that you've developed fits into that work?
Okay. So the governor's executive order 203 in June, end of June, the governor required that all police departments across the state of New York look at their use of force policies, look at their community engagement, look at how they are interacting with the public, look at internally how they're responding to police officers and police officers' needs. How are we training? It's a very comprehensive, deep dive into the police department. In that executive order, they stated that they would release a document on how to actually put that executive order into how to respond to the executive order. That document was released back in August. So it was released in August. And after it was released in August, we ended up in September, everyone knows what happened. In October, we came before council to engage with a outside entity, not to just help us with the executive order and some of the questions there, but also to help us be able to do a deep dive in some of the things that were happening around policing and how we responded to use of force and looking at our police department as a whole. So right now, the internal working group, the 7-member team, it consists of the chief and one of her staff people, a data person, myself, as well as our director of planning, a representative, 2 representatives from the PAB, the executive director, the chair of co-chair of one of the race commissions, Deputy Chief Wayne Harris, who's on the Race Commission's Criminal Justice Committee, as well as Reverend Lewis Stewart from UCLM, all community organizations that have been involved in policing. And so for the last couple weeks, we have been meeting. We have been talking about how to move forward and how to do the work. We looked at and taken a deep dive into the 13 different sections of the governor's executive order, assigned different groups to work on them. And then right now we have before, the group most have agreed, and I think the PAB is taking it up for consideration tonight, a recommendation to City Council regarding getting us some help in putting this together to be able to respond. The governor outlined that we needed to be able to have this report on his desk by April 1st. And if we work back from April 1st, that means that City Council would have to have it to pass in March. We also would have to have, a period of time for public comment of that document. We would look at probably having that document drafted and to the public and the council to review and sort of look at sometime in early February. So that we can make the changes to the document, and then that council can review it in March to be able to pass that and have it to the governor by April 1st.
Councilman Patterson, did you have any additional?
And so is the survey then? So is
one of the questions. I'm sorry, I missed that part, but one of the.
So is the survey component of community?
If you're one of the surveys questions asked about hiring an entity to help us be able to do the work. And as we all started to look at the work that needed to be done, there was a question on whether people believed that we needed to do this internally, whether we needed to do this just with, inside of the police department, or if, and I believe that there were some community questions as to whether we could do it. And so we wanted to know from a broad base of what the community, larger community, City of Rochester residents felt about, those things. And, we wanted to get a sense of that. And so that's what that was about.
Thank you.
Mary Lupian, I think you had a follow-up question, Councilmember Lupian.
Yeah, going back to the questions, Councilmember Payo, I understand, your sentiment. Like, I think maybe we're coming at it from different angles. I'm not so worried about people from outside the city, because I would like to think that people self-reported accurately. But in the way that the questions were constructed, question 5, for example, talks about providing our new interim chief the resources she needs to build police community relations that would include working with community, police employees, and interested parties. And the way that it's constructed, I feel like, yes, who wouldn't want that? But I think the question is, what does that mean? Because if that question means, should we increase the police budget? I think you get a very different answer. So I think with some of these questions, I'm unsure what you take out of it. You know what I mean?
So I don't think that means that you increase the police budget. That means that you give her the support, meaning the knowledge support, the support in giving her time. She just released a 90-day sort of fact-finding plan. It's giving her the time that she needs to be able to do the work. And so, I think that people, based on their own biases, will interpret the question the way that they want to. But it doesn't, and that's why when you look at, okay, well, what is the intent? It's not necessarily, oh, well, do you want to increase the police budget? No, it has nothing to do with money. It has everything to do with, do you give her the support that she needs in order to actually do the job? And a lot of times support means giving them the leeway and the time to be able to do the work. Doesn't necessarily equate to dollars. And
I can understand that. I think just the way that go ahead.
So in that vein, it means different things to different people. And that's why being allowed to make the comments and look at the comments is very, very important. But across the board, it doesn't mean to give additional dollars to the police department automatically. I mean, I think that this, council, this administration, we have reduced the police department's budget. But I do believe that given the police chief, the interim police chief, an opportunity to be successful is very important, an opportunity to make change. And that opportunity to make the change doesn't equate to dollars all the time.
I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I guess in the way that the question was worded, it leaves it up to interpretation because it wasn't more specific about what it was actually asking. And so for me, if people can interpret it different ways, then what do the yes, no responses mean? You know what I'm saying?
So the yes, no responses mean whatever the person that's answering the question interpret it as.
But what does it mean to us?
So if you, to me, and I believe to me, it means that people want to give the chief an opportunity to be successful. I mean, if you want to, if you look at it and you say, oh, well, you know, this to me means that you're asking for more money. Well, if we wanted to say, do you want, you know, it's very easy to ask the question, do you believe we need to introduce, do you believe that we need to increase the police department's budget? Yes or no? That's a very easy question to ask. This question has nothing to do with budget. It has nothing to do with money. It never asked about that. It asked about, do you want to give her the support? Support means give her the support to be able to do her job, means give her time to do her job. The way in which you interpret the question is based on how you want to interpret that particular question, or anyone that's reading.
Well, I don't know about that because it doesn't actually say support. You know, it says, do you support providing her with the resources, and resources isn't specific. So I guess just what I'm saying is someone who read that question to resources to mean financial resources might have said no, but they also do support giving her the time and leeway to do what she needs to do. So I feel like this, with this question and some of the other ones, I just question the information that we're really able to provide, that we're able to glean from it.
So I guess it doesn't say financial resources. If we wanted to ask the question, give her financial resources, that question would have asked financial resources. Resources mean give her the support.
I hear what you're saying.
Give her the support. I mean, you want to read more into the question than what the question is asking.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying that the question isn't specific to what kind of resources, which could lead to it really having inaccurate results. That's all that I'm saying. So I understand your perspective, you know, and I don't think I'm alone in wondering what that meant.
Can I just offer this for consideration? That I believe my understanding, and I understand where you're coming from, Councilmember Lupien, that the question could have been a little more general and it wasn't as specific as it potentially could be. I think that's one of the issues with surveys, most surveys, to be quite honest with you, that there is this margin for error or interpretation. However, that's why when I saw the survey, one of the things that I thought was promising and that was good to see was the fact that there was a comment section. So if there was biases or people interpreted a certain way, they had an opportunity to explain what that meant to them and what that, you know, so I think the better piece of this is looking into these comments and really being able to dissect and really look these comments and we can get a lot from there. Now, if we'd have just had the survey without those comments, I could really get with you and say, you know what, you're absolutely right, because we really don't know what they were meaning. But in this particular situation, we know exactly what they meant.
Yeah, I'm really excited about those comments because I think that is the most valuable part of this entire survey. And I hear what you're saying. If we individually look at how they responded, we can tell where they were coming from. But just to look at this pie chart, we don't know that. So separating the data from the comments doesn't tell us much. That's my perspective.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Madam Mayor.
No, I don't see any more questions or comments. So wanted to give this information to council and the public, and definitely understand, you know, as we move forward, I think that this is a lot of constructive information for us to take back as we, you know, go forward with doing surveys and getting information from the public. And, you know, in the age of COVID, you know, as was indicated earlier, we have to think innovatively and differently, and doing surveys is going to be something that, you know, we utilize going forward. How we ask those questions and how questions are constructed, definitely want to be mindful. I believe that, you know, we've heard that. Utilizing focus groups as another way to glean information is something that we want to be mindful and actually opening up the door to having the window open for these surveys longer for a period between 2 to 4 weeks, I think is something that, we definitely are going to consider, as well as, how we promote, that this survey was widely promoted, but making sure that it's getting into as many people's hands, and their ability to actually take surveys in the future is going to be important. So, I think that this is great constructive information that I know that as an administration, we're definitely going to take forward. And, there's a lot of work to be done, not just in policing, but across the board. And, this is a way for us to engage and hear from our community about different things that they believe that they've shown is important to them.
Madam Mayor,
go ahead, Madam President.
If this survey is going to be used as the basis in support for legislation, I'd like to know, how quickly can we get some indication of the themes that we're talking about from the comments? Now, I also think that if we're talking about legislation, there's a lot that we've got that you'll be presenting to support it as it is. But I still would like to have the benefit of looking at what those the comments actually tell us. I see the aggregated totals, but you can hear the unreadiness about the overall summation.
I mean, we can. I think let me turn it over to our data analytics person to answer that question.
Yes, so I can sort of mine it for themes, major comment areas, and tag those specific comments to those themes. The best way for me to provide you with that sort of comment explorer is through the interactive dashboard tool. I can turn around that analysis by Monday. The migration is going to disrupt my ability to host it anywhere until the migration is finished. So I believe the migration is supposed to be done and ready Thursday of next week. That's probably the easiest way. Because otherwise, if I don't host it on the interactive dashboard tool, then I'm just giving you code that you would have to.
Yeah. So what we can do, and I can ask our communications team, you can go through it. We have, sort of 5 groups, or the comments are all available now. You can read through them and look at them. It's not broken down into, people, supporting X, Y, or Z at this point. But, some of them are, are off base or don't have anything to do with, the information that we're requesting. So we can go through and try to give you, in general, some themes and what those comments reflect. Justin, do you think that you can provide, have somebody on communications do that? Since, what Kate is talking about is we're getting ready to do a migration, IT systems upgrade, and that is going to disrupt the dashboard. So that's why she's saying that for her, to do this electronically will be a problem. So you would have to, do it basically by person.
Yeah, no, I mean, we can certainly attempt to go through that and do that manually. I think we can also maybe provide a word cloud, some of those things, to try to give a sense of what's there. But certainly we'll make every effort to categorize the comments by category manually. Certainly I would think Monday we could have a document like that available to council.
Thank you.
Okay, so it's asked, Madam President and Madam Mayor, it's asked, are we able to get that, Justin, in a spreadsheet format, maybe potentially, if possible, if you're able to do that, sir?
Certainly, Vice President, we're going to, after this meeting, we'll launch the website that'll have the survey results, and we'll also have the full Excel document available to anyone in the public who'd like to access it.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you. Madam Mayor, if there's nothing else, do you have any other additional information to share?
No, thank you for your time, and we'll be getting that information that you requested. And thank you for the information on ways in which we can craft the surveys better in the future, as well as other ways that we can engage the public through focus groups. I think that that's very helpful. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Everyone have a great evening and be safe. Take care. Bye-bye.